Citizens United was a Supreme Court decision that happened in 2010 and essentially created super PACs, political action committees that bundle money from interest groups to lobby politicians. Spoiler alert, I don't like that shit. And most of y'all don't either. I went to Arizona to a town hall to listen to Senator Kelly and some other reps from organizations trying to end Citizens United to get the facts. One thing this work has done is push me further left. And I represent a lot of people in my audience that are somewhat further left as well. And so they have criticism for both Republicans and Democrats. Yeah. I surfaced them for questions and I was like, what do you guys want to talk to a senator about? Yeah. And they gave me a lot of options to choose from. Okay. So I'll start with the fact that getting rid of Citizens United, getting money out of politics is essentially a very progressive standpoint, right? Like, people on the far left tend to agree with stances like that. Yeah. And you spoke.
I think some of the people on the right also think we not.
100%. You spoke briefly on the fact that even some Democrats kind of take stances that are in support of this while also taking that kind of money themselves. Why do you think that persists?
Well, I think there are folks out there that try to work around the rules here to personally benefit. We see that both from Democrats and Republicans. Mm-hmm. But the American people don't get to do that. And you're there to represent your constituents and make decisions that are in the best interest. And you shouldn't trade on what's essentially inside information.
Absolutely. We've seen a lot of examples of that. And one thing that a lot of my viewers were also very concerned about, very frustrated about, is just money in politics across the board. So it starts with the super PACs, right? And that's what we're talking about today. But it extends to private interest groups and wealthy individuals and like some of the stuff that happened before Citizens United even took place. A lot of them brought up very specific examples. I don't have time to list all of them, but there's money coming from pro-Israel groups. There's money coming from pro-fuel and gas groups. Just a lot of money pouring in from different sources. So my question for you is, one, do you oppose a certain amount of money coming from even private individuals? And as an extension of that, as a strategy question, do you support stacking the Supreme Court? So two separate questions.
Well, first thing on the money and the groups, I don't take corporate PAC money.
Right.
I have a public schedule. I put all my assets in a blind trust of 535 members of Congress. I take this job very seriously. I'm the only person that does that, of 535 people. So I hold myself to a very high standard, and we shouldn't have these big giant corporations and super PACs where billionaires are funding and dark money groups. You don't even know where the money is coming from. And if you want to get rid of that, you need to elect Democrats to the House and the Senate, because Republicans don't seem to have any interest in getting rid of this stuff.
Sure.
Where a lot of us do.
So 16 years ago, Senator Kelly, the Supreme Court decided the Citizens United case that really opened the door to the unlimited and undisclosed funding that we've seen flooding into our elections. And since that time, spending in our elections has more than doubled, while policymaking has ground to a halt. And I think really by any measure, our democracy is weaker today than it was then. So, my question, what do you think the biggest impacts of that decision were? And how do you think that impacts everyday people's lives and what you've seen in Congress?
Well, I'll start with the second part, and that's it has resulted in a government that is not working for the American people, and a government that works mostly for the billionaires and millionaires. Woo! And that decision basically said that corporations are like people and money is freedom of speech. Money isn't speech, and corporations are not people. The consequence of what the Supreme Court did is it resulted in 300 billionaires and multimillionaires and their family members contributing now 19% of what is spent in elections, in the 2024 election, 19%. Before that decision, that number was 0.3%. So because of what the Supreme Court did, it gave a huge amount of influence to the wealthiest Americans. And because of that, since 2010, you have seen an enormous portion of this country's wealth moved from hardworking people and from the middle class into the pockets of people like Donald Trump and his family.
There was a moment in this town hall where this dude stood up while filming himself and yelled at Senator Kelly about Israel and the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act. Fact check. AIPAC is the biggest pro-Israel group, and they are very unpopular. They have a PAC called the AIPAC PAC and an affiliated super PAC, the United Democracy Project. A super PAC can raise and spend unlimited cash from corporations, unions, associations, and individuals to advocate for or against political candidates, but they can't donate directly to those candidates' campaigns, unlike PACs. Kelly hasn't received money from either one. Track AIPAC is inaccurate. They lump every individual donor from a vaguely Jewish-sounding company or organization under one banner and assume a candidate's voting record reflects that total. I did the research on Open Secrets and the FEC website, and this Track AIPAC card stating he raised $500,000 from pro-Israel groups lacks evidence. The National Defense Authorization Act is problematic for anyone who wants America to back off of our ties to Israel, because the U.S.-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, long name, inside this act, establishes a long-term partnership that has us developing defense systems and weapons jointly with Israel. The House Armed Services Committee passed it, so the protester was pushing Kelly to oppose it when and if it hits the Senate. My take is that Senator Kelly is very much a centrist on many issues while being right-leaning on others, like immigration, for example. That said, he seems to be the best possible ally when it comes to ending Citizens United.
Christina Harvey. I'm the Executive Director of Stand Up America.
Okay.
And I am Tiffany Muller, the president of In Citizens United.
A lot of what you spoke to was the corruption on the Republican side, and it's extensive, and it's definitely more than the Democratic side. But what have you seen any pushback even from Democrats when it comes to these issues?
Look, I think that there's a reason that Americans are frustrated with both parties, right? And they definitely think a little bit of like pox on all your houses.
Right.
You're all up there in Washington. You keep coming to us and asking us to vote for you, but then you're not actually changing this broken system that is making it harder and harder for us to get by. We're working more jobs. We have less benefits. Housing prices are out of control. Childcare costs are out of control. Gas, grocery, energy bills, right? And voters have been voting for change for 20 years. But the system is rigged as a whole. And it makes it really hard to actually fundamentally reform the foundation of that system, which is absolutely what we have to do. So it's really no wonder that Americans are frustrated, frankly, with both parties. Right. Now, what we know is that Democrats actually have a plan for addressing that. They have said that it will be one of their top priorities when we take back Congress. And that's great. But we have to get it over the finish line. And the voters' frustration is going to help us actually power what is needed to get it over the finish line.
The first thing that we need to do is we need to flip Congress, both the House and the Senate. We need to elect a Democratic president in 2028. And then we will actually have something to work with. We will have people that we can actually have our members call and show up to rallies and advocate and say, hey, these are the reforms that we need you to pass so that this level of corruption can never happen again. But by changing who's actually in office, we're at least giving ourselves a shot at turning things around and having a government that will actually work for working people.
I'm pragmatic by nature, but I'm also very radicalized against the Democratic Party. I don't see myself ever voting for a Republican, and I've voted for Democrats in every election since my first one, which was Obama in 2008. But I refuse to harm underrepresented and vulnerable groups of people indirectly, people who look like us, especially to stand on my principles. Actually, I think it reflects my principles.
You know, the Supreme Court is now, sided, certainly with with this president. He essentially took away a Supreme Court seat that President Obama was able to nominate somebody too. Mitch McConnell did that. Donald Trump didn't do it, but Mitch McConnell actually did that. I think that was, something that was, incredibly unfair. We need a Supreme Court, that is fair and, somewhat balanced. And we haven't seen balanced decisions out of them for some time. I think over time, this thing will, self-correct. I do worry about, this president now pressuring, when he sees the writing on the wall here, let's say he sees us about to lose the Senate, is he going to try to pressure a justice to retire so he could appoint a much younger person that'll, so we wind up with a court that'll continue to erode the rights of U.S. citizens. We've seen women losing their rights to make choices about their body. That's gone because of this court.
Absolutely.
So we've got problems.
Right.
And we need to figure out a way to deal with it.
So to get specific drilling down on the cap on individual donors, do you think there's an amount that we should cap?
I think it should be lower
think it
than
should
it
be
is
lower?
now, even for individual donors.
Okay.
Yes, because we want everybody to have like a fair and even stake in this democracy. And an individual donor right now can donate like, $7,000. I think that's the number, and most Americans can't afford that. So a system with much lower caps to the maximum amount would allow more people to kind of have the same kind of skin in the game. And if you want to say this gives somebody like some kind of influence, but to help them get a candidate elected, so like an average person would be able to provide the same amount of support as somebody that's incredibly wealthy, I think that makes us stronger.
A couple of y'all mentioned the Hawaii measure that requires lobbyists to register contributions above $1,000 while limiting post office use of confidential info to 1 year. I think the 1 year limit is toothless, but the detailed tracking of state contracts and things like that would help a lot here. I didn't have time to ask them that question directly, but their proposal is laid out throughout this video. Flip the House and Senate, pass legislation, and shift the balance of power on the Supreme Court. The details of that legislation aren't super clear yet because it doesn't exist. And as my last question, one thing that I think frustrates people on the far left, even some people on the right, as you alluded to, is that all of their efforts to reach out to their representatives, try to support initiatives that get this money out of politics, they seem to fall on deaf ears at times, even towards the people that they support, the Democrats that they support. What do you think the future looks like, even beyond efforts like ending Citizens United, efforts like this on the left? What do you think the future looks like as far as protecting the rights like Roe v. Wade, for example, even after they're reversed, even after those rights are reinstated?
Well, we've got to pass legislation, and we've got to have, you got to elect the right people. I think the American people need to look seriously at candidates and say, hey, who's going to do what is in my best interest? Who is going to represent me the way and make decisions that help me with my life and benefit me, and who's going to be looking out for me? And it doesn't fall on deaf ears. I get thousands of calls and emails and letters every single week, and I'm pretty in tune as to what people are calling about. Now, we can't always call everybody back, right?
Sure.
But we try to respond, with a letter on the issue that they're talking about, and it does have an impact. Don't feel like, picking up the phone and calling your member of Congress is a waste of time. It is not a waste of time. It is a way you can participate beyond just voting, and you should continue to do that. I wish people would do more of it. Call my office and tell me what you care about. I'm not always picking up the phone, but somebody
Sure.
is. And if nobody does, you leave a message, and those messages are listened to, and we keep track, and we know where people are on issues and what they care about, and that means a lot to me.
These used to be bipartisan issues,
Right.
right? McCain-Feingold, that passed in 2002, was actually pretty equally supported by Democrats and Republicans. And it is a bipartisan effort across America. Republicans, Democrats, Independents all think there's too much corruption. all think there's too much money in politics. So right now, the only place it's partisan is on Capitol Hill. And we have to reset those incentives. We have to get all of the elected leaders listening to their constituents again, not the biggest donors.
Would love to see it personally. And so for those who are a little bit disenchanted, who are chanting for things like a lot of people want ranked choice voting, as an example. Have you spoken to people who are just completely checked out of the system and are looking for, not only everybody to blame, but just not confident in what any of these efforts can do to change what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. We do. This is like my 40th town hall. I travel the country and talk to people all the time. We also do lots of focus groups and talk to voters. And one of the groups we talk to are these really cynical, skeptical, like fed up with all parties voters. And there's some focus groups that were actually reported on the other day where one of the participants said, I don't know, I just vote for the least worst choice.
Right.
And they were like, wait, isn't that how everybody makes their decision to vote? And I think that that's because they have lost faith in the system and its ability to address their problems. They don't feel heard. They don't feel seen, and they sure don't feel like anyone cares about them, right? And actually, if we get the money out that is drowning out the system, that is corrupting the system, that is rigging the system, we can actually allow people to feel seen again.
And I would say it is never a lost cause to stand up for democracy and stand up for your voice. Especially at the state level, we are seeing that really pay off. For example, as bad as things are in Texas, last year, Texas Republicans were trying to pass a Texas version of the SAVE Act that would have disenfranchised so many people in Texas. And thousands of people showed up at rallies. They called their lawmakers and they put the pressure on. And they left and went home without passing it. So even in the worst of circumstances, it is possible to be victorious.
Any closing thoughts for people watching this who might not know how to lean in, how to get involved, how to activate towards these causes?
I'll just tell you to text STAND to 63033 and text STAND to 63033 and we will be in touch with you about how you can help elect anti-corruption candidates and then actually help them get these measures across the finish line.
Okay.
Yeah, look, we need you to fight this fight with us. Your voice matters, your vote matters, your platform matters. Each and every one of us have a platform where we can actually speak up about these issues to our friends, our families, our coworkers. So stay involved and keep using your voice. And then I would say go to endcitizensunited.org and join us in this fight. It's going to take all of us standing together.
This has been another episode of The Fact Check. Sources cited in the description. As always, stay tuned for more facts. Power to the people.